This episode has been sponsored by Connor Insurance and Auto Owners Insurance Company. Hi, this is Abby at Connor Insurance. There have been record amounts of rain all across the country this year. Most damage occurs when water backs up in your drains and basement fixtures. If you have a basement, you need to check the limit your policy provides for water backup. If you aren't sure how to check, just give me a call or visit us at connorins.com.
Shepherd has been serving the children of Indianapolis and helping families for 34 years. We work to break the cycle of poverty on the Near East Side of Indianapolis because we love the children in our neighborhood. We are privileged to watch our neighbors grow physically, emotionally, spiritually, and academically through the relationships we build every day. Partnered with Shepherd by donating $34 to celebrate 34 years. Visit shepherdcommunity.org/BLF to join us.
And now, the show that bridges the gap between faith and business. Welcome to Bottom Line Faith.
Well, hello, everyone. This is Ray Hilbert. I am your host here at Bottom Line Faith. We are so glad that you've chosen to join us again for another episode where we really like to talk about that intersection, what we call eternal business and real life. We get a chance to travel around the country and interview some of the most amazing Christ followers who are in the marketplace, in business, and in leadership. We hear their stories. We learn how their faith shapes their journey in business and in leadership. And so we are so grateful, so thankful that you would join us here at Bottom Line Faith. I got to tell you, folks, this kind of feels a little bit like a reunion, and I don't want to say an old friend, but a friend from back in the 90s. I was, some of you know, if you're listeners here, that I used to, several years ago, over 25 years ago, I was on the staff at a ministry called Promise Keepers, and back in the day, back in the mid-90s, I met today's guest, Dr. Leonard Scott, and he was a trailblazer back then. And when you hear Dr. Scott's stories and the things that God has him doing today, it is amazing. Let me just read a couple of things about Dr. Scott. In fact, I'm a little challenged today exactly where we're going to go in the conversation because I refer to Dr. Scott as that true Renaissance man. We could talk about his business background, his music background, wellness, all those things. But let me just read a couple of things about Dr. Scott. He is an author and a pastor and a radio show host. He has written several books. He's got a passion for wellness, and his latest book is called The Ultimate Boost from Within, 31 Days to Health, Wealth, Wholeness, and Happiness. He has been since 1973 a practicing dentist, and we're going to hear about it's a generational thing now. We got three generations in the dental practice. He is also the founder and CEO of the nation's oldest gospel recording company, Ty Scott Incorporated, which has been the home to many superstar recording artists in the genre. And a recent milestone, I am so excited to read this, 20 million digital streams through his talent in Ty Scott Inc. Dr. Scott, welcome to Bottom Line Faith.
Well, thank you. Thank you. You know what? I really look at you as a legend. I tell you.
You must have talked to my mom.
No, back in the day with Promise Keepers, that blew me away to see thousands of men.
Yes.
Praising and worshiping God. I mean, that was powerful.
It really was to think about 50, 60,000 men who are doing nothing but praising Jesus, all walks of life, all denominations, all careers, all ethnic and genetic backgrounds. It's just amazing. So I'm ready to jump right in because there's a lot of things I want to talk to you about today. And folks, if you're driving, I won't encourage you to pull over. I won't encourage you to take notes while you're driving, but I would encourage you pull over and take some notes because you are going to learn a lot from Dr. Leonard Scott. First of all, tell us a little bit about your background, your vocation. Did I get that right? 1973.
Right.
You started dental practice.
Yes.
Where did that love for dentistry come from?
That is interesting. So when I was a child, I had very low self-esteem. I really didn't want to do too much. I just wanted to get a job making $100 a week and party on the weekends, and that was my goals. Mm-hmm. But my dad saw something in me I didn't see in myself. You know, he would tell me, "Boy, you got a good mind. You should do." And he'd always say, "You ought to be a doctor." And I didn't think I could do that, but I loved my parents. I always wanted to please my parents. And so here's what I said. I said to myself, okay, I'm going to give it my best shot. And then when I fail, I'll be able to tell my dad I tried my best. But I found out anything you try your best at, you're probably going to do. And it really kind of, changed my whole perspective of what's possible.
Yeah. So, Dr. Scott, are you still practicing dentistry today?
I practice 1 day a week now, except when somebody can't make it in, one of the other dentists, and I'll go in like today. I went in and filled in for my granddaughter who wasn't feeling too good.
Did y'all catch what Dr. Scott just said? He went in and filled in today for his granddaughter. So this really is a family legacy business. Is that right? You've got several young folks from the family that's practicing.
Well, only one daughter and one granddaughter.
All right. And where do they practice?
Now, they all have practiced with me. My daughter was with me for about 10 years until she decided she wanted to get married. And I don't know why she couldn't find anybody in Indianapolis to marry, So she's actually in Dallas, Texas now, and she's still practicing, of course, there. And every now and then she'll fly back in and spend a few days in the office with us.
Yeah. What is it about, because one of the things we love to talk about here at Bottom Line Faith is kind of like what motivates people, where they get their joy in their work and the meaning in following the Lord in their work. What is it about dentistry that was so interesting to you and caused you to stick with it for so long? Because you still love it.
Yeah, I do. I really do. And it's interesting because I chose dentistry because I was afraid of blood.
Okay.
And so, and I didn't have a clue. As you know, most dentists see more blood than most physicians do, unless they're a surgeon. Physicians don't see any blood, But that was the reason I kind of went into dentistry. But I found out that when I got into dentistry, it's a way that you can, it can help. I see people hiding their mouths, hiding their smile because of a tooth is missing or there's a decay or something in the front, or the teeth are crooked, and I've been able to straighten those crooked teeth or fill in those gaps, and all of a sudden there's no more hiding the smile, and it builds self-confidence, to be able to, feel good about your appearance, and that's rewarding.
Very
Very
rewarding.
rewarding.
Very good. And so, as you look out over the past, what is that, 40 years, 45 years?
46 years. I don't know. This is 73, 46 years.
46 years, which is amazing. Does anything stand out to you as far as what has changed in that industry?
When I started, dentists didn't wear gloves. Dentists didn't wear masks. Dentists didn't have any protective eye gear. I mean, it just, it was totally different. I mean, but then as the AIDS thing came in and all of that, all of this change, which, and I'm glad it did,
Yep.
But, I've seen, those changes that, and now everything is digital. X-rays are digital, and even taking impressions is digital. You just take a thing, and it's exciting. And the exciting thing about it too is that with all the stem cell research, they can actually now, instead of putting in metal implants, they can implant your own tooth back in there. And
No kidding.
Yeah, and it'll grow. They've done it in lab rats. It's going to be a few years before they get it perfected. They say the only thing that's not perfected is what kind of tooth it's going to be. So you want to have a molar right there.
Okay. That might cause a few interesting pictures, right?
Right.
So the technology is so different, as you said, but the safety issues and those kinds of things. But you still have a passion for it. How have you experienced your dentistry as ministry? How has the Lord allowed you to live out your faith in the context of your dentistry practice?
Oh, in a large way. We play mostly, I can't say all gospel music, but it's mostly gospel music. There are a few songs that are just maybe a little smooth jazz or something, but it's mostly gospel music that we play. And a lot of our patients actually come in, and if it's not playing, they'll say, "Where's the music? You know, we enjoy the music in here." And there is something about gospel music or inspirational music that is different from some of the other genres like the hard rock and just there is music, I believe, has a spirit, and when you're in a dentist's office, you don't need music that's going to make you anxious. Music that's going to calm you down. And I do pray with patients at chairside. I ask them, can I pray with you? And sometimes it's for their fear, and sometimes it's for other things, because people do share things with their dentists, that are going on in their lives.
Yeah.
And I've had a chance to witness people. I've had a chance to invite people to church, and just especially, when I don't have to worry about somebody coming telling me I can't do that.
Right.
And if the patient doesn't like me doing it, well, they just don't come back anymore.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you're probably not like me. I would probably go, okay, I got you captured. You're in my chair, so I'm gonna tell you can't go anywhere until I tell you about Jesus. You're probably much more kind and diplomatic. That's awesome.
Let me tell you something about that, though. That can be flipped on you. I had a guy come in with this. He had a boom box. He set it down, and when I went to work on his teeth, he said, "You don't mind if I play this song for you, do you?"
Oh, is that right?
He's trying to get a record deal.
Well, that's actually a great segue, because another passion, and I read a little bit about it in the introduction here, is you started the first gospel music company, Ty Scott Inc. And tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, it wasn't the first.
Not the first, okay.
We are the oldest now.
Oldest, okay.
Yeah. The other ones that started before gone belly under, which, not for the grace of God, we would be belly under too.
Yeah.
But God just been good to us. That started also as, before I got saved, I wanted to be a rock star. And I was in a group called the Soul Messengers. This was back in the 60s, the late 60s. And I had a big afro, don't laugh. And I used to tie a bandana around it like Jimi Hendrix or somebody. And
do you have any pictures? I have to see that at some point. That would be awesome.
I do. But in the interim, though, the Lord saved me. And at that point, I got out of the group, and I started, I really got out of music, period, because music had been my God. You can make a God out of anything, or anybody, but now I had found the real, true, and living God, and I didn't want anything, to pull me away from that. And so I just totally got out of music. After about a year, I don't know, it's like I just got a release in my spirit, and I just got in the choir, in our church choir. During that time, our local church was having some internal problems, with the deacons and the pastor type problems.
Okay, all right, yeah.
And so I went on a fast, a shut-in actually, went into a hotel room for 3 days and 3 nights, fasting and praying. I had my Bible with me, I had a little notebook and a little tape recorder. You know how long that was ago to have a tape recorder. And, it's amazing, at the end of that when it was time for me to leave, the Lord just started giving me songs, just one after another, music and words.
Really?
Yes. About 8 or 10 of them. I just started singing them. I didn't know what was going on. I started singing them in this little tape recorder. When I stepped outside of the hotel room, and I didn't know this because I hadn't been out for 3 days, there had been an ice storm. And I don't know if you've ever seen an ice storm. Everything looks like it's crystal, I thought I had died and gone to heaven. I didn't know what was going on.
Really?
But, yeah. Had to be very careful because it was slick out there too. But I went to our church organist and asked him what he thought about these songs, and he said, "I think we ought to do a record. And so we did a record, and we needed a label to put it on. That's my attorney. At this time, I had, of course, the dental practice. I think I had one or two other businesses. And the attorney said, well, you need to incorporate. So somebody says you stole this song, they won't be able to sue everything. It'll be confined to this entity. And he said, what do you want to call it? I said, I don't know. And he said, well, what's your partner's name? I said, his name is Tyson. He said, your name is Scott. Let's call it Ty Scott. I said, okay. Now, I'd like to tell you, an angel came out of heaven and said, the Lord wants you to start this.
Some things are a little simpler than that, right?
And I thought that was going to be the end of it, just
Really?
we put our record out, but things started happening. Other people would come to us and ask if they could use our label, and it just kind of grew. And you look back in hindsight, and you can see what God was doing, how He was, really putting this together, and yeah.
And so now, as the nation's old, what year did you start, Ty Scott?
1976.
Okay, so you'd been practicing dentistry about 3 years at that point. Now,
Right.
and you come to the Lord, and now you started this record company. Did you have role models that helped you in the music industry, or was it kind of I learn as I go? What was that like in the early days for you?
It was definitely learn as I go. My only experience before had been as a heathen, out there rocking and rolling, and so I had very little experience as far as like the business end of it.
Yeah.
Apart from being on the road, but as far as like recording, and we just learned as we went along.
Yeah. Yep. And one of the things I'm curious about, so you've been in that industry for a long time, and now as the nation's oldest, and thank you for correcting me earlier, that wasn't the first, but it's the longest withstanding, sustainable, right?
Yeah.
Obviously the Lord's anointing, God's favor, but from a business standpoint, what is it that people in the recording industry, music industry, how do they lose money? How do they make money? How does that work? What's the business model look like?
When I first got into business, I remember there was a statistic that was mind-blowing. The statistic was 1 out of 9 records breaks even. Now, you can do better than that going to Las Vegas and rolling dice on a table,
1 out of 9 songs?
1 out of 9 records. So when you
Records,
produce a record, that means you got 9 records, one of them is going to make enough money to pay for the record.
Okay. So it's a lot like books, right? A lot of authors publish
yeah.
books, but very few actually sell books. Okay, go
Right.
ahead. Yep. All right. So the odds are overwhelming against your success.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I mean, but the thing is, and this is how the really major companies make it. If you got somebody that's really selling a lot of them, because once you do break even, the rest is gravy. It's almost
yeah.
like free money.
Yeah.
Because you're still getting the same amount that you were getting when it wasn't paid for. And so if you have hit artists, you can make a whole lot of money.
Okay.
If you don't, you can lose a whole lot of money real quick.
So generally speaking, in the industry, are the companies like yours, some of those that are still in existence, maybe even some that went, do they go and get investors? Do they put together partnerships? Do they just self-fund these things? Do the artists fund the record companies? As a rule, I'm just trying to understand the business model.
Everything you just said.
Okay. It's all that.
It just depends on the deal that is made. And the publishing has a lot to do with it also. Publishing is a big part of the music industry, and that's the song. The person that doesn't lose is the songwriter. The artist basically pays for everything. The record company just fronts the money.
Okay.
And it's a kind of loan that if it doesn't get paid back, the artist doesn't owe it. It's not like going to a bank. Whether you make it or not, you got to pay this money back. But in the record business, that's why a lot of artists get cut, because after they've lost so much, it's like, I'm not taking no more chances on you.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to get that money back.
Yeah, absolutely. So for folks who are listening who may be familiar with the gospel industry, to whatever level you're comfortable, what would be some of the artists that you may have worked with over the years that we might, that's someone that's pretty cool?
Well, one of the artists that really broke it for us was Reverend John P. Key,
Yeah.
New Life Community Choir. We have worked with Carmen, with Rance Allen Group,
Yeah.
Bashan Mitchell,
Yeah.
Anthony Brown in group therapy. Who are some of the others? KCJ right now. Dr. Bobby Jones.
Yeah. It's quite a list.
Oh yeah, and there are many more. Just
Yeah.
my senior citizen is is kicking in.
We'll give you a pass. It's all right. It's all good. So what has, so in my mind, I'm thinking, back in the 70s and 80s, I think about all these artists that are touring and those kinds of things. We're buying the albums. Mm-hmm. What has changed in the music industry that would be interesting for our listeners that maybe they don't know? How do the artists make money today? And where do the most successful artists make money, and where do they not make money that maybe they did at one time?
Mm-hmm. Of course, one thing that artists have realized is that the songwriter does make money from the first record sold. From the first record sold, the record company has to get their money back,
Mm-hmm.
but it's from the record sales. It's not from the songs. Songwriter gets paid from the very first record sold. And so what artists have done, they've become songwriters because they've seen how this thing works.
Yep, yep.
Why is everybody else getting paid and I'm not getting paid? Well, the artist pays for everything. It comes out of the sales of the record, but the songwriter and publisher gets paid.
Okay. There's a TV show, I think it's called Songland. Are you
Okay.
familiar with this?
I've heard of it.
Yeah,
I've
so I
heard-
think
yeah.
that as I'm listening to what you're talking about, it's very fascinating because it's a reality-based TV where they bring in, usually in an episode, 3 or 4 young songwriters that are making a pitch to these very high-profile artists, and they're looking to sell the song. So you're saying that's where the money is made from almost day one, at
Yeah.
least. Record one, certainly.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what about how has the digital world changed music, the streaming and downloads and all? How has that changed the music industry?
People don't buy CDs like they used to, and
Right.
I've seen it go from. You remember the 45s with the
Yeah.
big hole in the middle,
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it was a singles industry. You bought a song, side A, and then you had a side B. And then albums came along.
Yeah.
Where if you want the song, you got to buy all 12 of them, You have to buy this whole big thing just to get this one song. And so that was a lot of music being sold. So you got now 12 songs that every
Yeah.
time
Yeah.
somebody buys. And then but it's really come full circle back to back to a singles deal now. You don't have to buy the whole album. You can download, and people are not really downloading anymore, especially the younger generation.
Yeah.
They're streaming,
Yeah.
and so they can stream whatever song they want to hear and listen to it as many times as they want to listen to it, over and over if they want to, or listen to anything else they want to listen to. And so streaming is really the way that people are getting their music now.
Yeah.
And the streaming numbers aren't what they should be, but
In terms of compensation to the artist, is that what you're referring to?
right,
Okay.
right. And to all those who are involved,
Yeah.
which is the publishers and songwriters, so everybody's getting paid from this same stream.
Yeah. In your information that I read, it talked about over 20 million digital streams through Ty Scott. What's the average music company do over the course of their? I mean, I'm probably asking an unfair question, but would that be considered like successful in the industry? 20 million streams?
I think that anytime you get past 1 million, you're doing okay.
Okay. Well, that's okay.
So yeah, it's like what do they call now? Something going viral.
Yeah.
After you get
Yeah.
so many hits, it's gone viral.
Yep.
Well, if it goes viral, it's successful. If like 400,000 or 500,000 people have looked at what you put up there, it's probably successful, you know.
Yeah, big time stuff. So, folks, we're speaking with Dr. Leonard Scott, author and pastor, founder of Ty Scott Inc. Dr. Scott, before we go any further, if someone would like to learn more about you and your company, what's the best website for them to check out?
BishopLScott.com for me personally. For the record company, it's TyScott.com.
And that's TYSCOTT.com.
Only one T at the end.
Okay, my fault. Let me restate that then.
Yeah.
So that is TYSCOT.com.
That's right.
All right.
Yes.
Or BishopLScott.com. Okay, so this is fascinating to me to learn the background from dentistry and the ministry there and music and how that all came about. What I'd like to do is I'd like to learn a bit more about lessons learned in your journey along the way.
Okay.
And as you look back over the course of your career, what would you say, whether it's in dentistry or the music industry, however you want to answer this, is what would you say is one of the biggest mistakes you ever made, and what did God teach you in the middle of that?
Oh, wow. You know what? It just came to me, too. When I was first starting in dentistry, I started by myself. You know, I didn't have any assistants or anything. And so I hired this one young lady to be my assistant, and she did everything. She did the front desk. You know, she came back and assisted me chairside. I mean, she was, and so one day it was late. I was frustrated, and she was helping me. You know, I was trying to pull this tooth, didn't want to come out, and I don't know. I hollered at her, you know, and she just nicely just laid down her things and just walked away. And I couldn't do it without her, you know. It's like,
oh no! What happened? What happened?
I told the patient, "Excuse me for a minute." I went back and I found her, and I said, "I'm sorry. Will you please come back and help me?"
At least let's get through this procedure. Did she come back?
Yeah, she did. You know, I apologize. You know.
Did you give her a raise?
I don't remember.
Okay.
It's been a long time.
But she certainly, you realize real quickly how important she was to the overall operation, right?
Yes. And, you know, I can't do this by myself, you know, and if you don't treat people right, you know, they're not going to stay around you. You know?
Yeah, that's right. Somebody told me years ago, and I'm sure you've heard this too, that there's one thing you know, if you see a turtle sitting on top of a fence post, there's one thing you know, they didn't get there on their own, right? So that was a lesson learned about the importance of other people in your journey and in your success. So, Dr. Scott, how has your faith shaped the way you've done business, whether that's in the dentistry practice? We talked about your ministry of playing music and praying with your patients, those kinds of things. But whether you want to talk about it from a dentistry standpoint or from your music recording company, how's your faith shaped the way you do business? What role has it played?
It's played a very big role because regardless of who you are or what industry you're in, I heard somebody say one time, the flesh is never saved, you know. Your soul is saved, but you're still living in this. Apostle Paul said, I have to renew my mind daily. Mm. He said, you know, I have to crucify. He said, crucify this flesh daily.
Right.
And so you always are tempted to do things that will maybe have an effect now, but later on, you know, maybe it's just a little untruth you have to tell, or just a little something you have to hide, you know, which, you know, this really isn't right, but it's gonna. And so just making the decision that I'm gonna be honest and I'm gonna have integrity regardless of what gets presented, you know. If I have to lose on this one, I'll just lose, you know. Because in the long run, you know, I believe it's better for me to please the Lord than to either make a few extra dollars or get a little extra whatever, you know. Yeah.
So I'm going to just speculate on this one. I'm going to contextualize this into dentistry, right? Like a patient would never know whether they genuinely need a procedure or not.
Right.
So there's the opportunity because you have expertise, they do not.
Right.
You could, if you so were inclined, could take advantage of that.
Certainly.
And that's what you're talking about, right? That kind of thing.
Yeah, and it happens every day. You know, I have people actually coming to my office, you know, and some things you can't tell because you weren't there.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of times you don't know what the other dentist was looking at when it happened. But some things you do know, that wasn't right.
Yeah.
I'd never tell a patient that. I'd never, but in your heart, and it's that integrity thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said it because you're answering to the Lord, regardless, right?
Right. Yeah.
And what about in the music industry? How you're in the gospel music industry? I understand that, but I know that doesn't automatically mean everything's going to be done ethically and in a godly way. How's your faith been tested in the gospel music industry?
Yes. Everybody in gospel music is not saved,
Yeah.
Everybody in gospel music does not purport to be saved. I remember I read a book when I was newly saved, and it was written by a young lady that her and her husband had a studio, and she said everybody came through there, but she said the Lord saved her, and she just couldn't wait for a gospel group to come through, because she wanted to tell them, And she said this group came through, and she was saying, "I'm saved now." And she said they looked at her like,
What does that mean?
yeah. And that's what she said. That at that point, she realized, everybody singing about Jesus don't even know Jesus. It's just a job. It's a way to make money. And so, when you do love the Lord, you feel like everybody that purports to love Him too, but not necessarily so. There's some people that they know they can make good money doing it.
Yeah, yeah. So can you is there a situation that comes back to mind about a time in your career? Let's maybe focus this one on the music industry where your faith was really tested. Maybe there was a really tough business decision. You were facing tough times. Maybe it was financial or whatever. But what comes to mind as maybe a really difficult season in business, and then how did your faith pull you through that?
Well, back in the 90s, we had a distributor. They distributed us, and they went bankrupt on us. And at the time, we had the #1 record in the nation. It's Reverend John P. Key in the New Life Community Choir. We walk by faith and not by sight.
Remember that song?
Yeah. Big hit, monster hit. And distributor calls us on a Friday evening and says, got bad news for you. We're going to go bankrupt. And he said it's not going to be one of those reorganizations where you might get 10 cents on a dollar or something. He said, we're going totally out of business. And he said, and it's going to happen Monday. This was on a Friday evening. And he told me, I'm sorry. And I began to praise the Lord over the phone. I said, hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. Lord, I love you. I think he thought I'd lost it, He owed me about $300,000. And the money I needed to pay everybody, pay the artists, the songwriters, the manufacturers, everybody. And yeah. And so he asked me, did you hear what I said? I said, yeah, I heard you. And he said, well, he told me he was sorry again and hung up the phone. And it was a situation, the thing is, either you're going to trust God or you're not, The Bible says that all things work together for good to those that love him and are called according to his purpose.
Right.
Either you're going to believe that or you're not. I mean, when really crazy stuff happens that you think, how can something good come out of this?
Right.
Well, do you believe God or not?
Well, I'd like to just park there just for a moment, because somebody listening to our conversation right now is probably going through a really, really hard time in their business, perhaps. And maybe a deal just went south, or they've been praying and waiting on something and it's not happening. Maybe they're not sure how they're going to meet next payroll. I mean, to get that call on a Friday and now realize there's $300,000 not coming into your business, and you've got things you've committed to.
Right.
And all you could do at that moment was praise Jesus And, may not have felt like it, but on the inside, but, on the outside, you're praising him.
Yeah.
What advice or encouragement would you have for somebody who's listening to our conversation right now, and they're at that point of despair, they're at that point of darkness and discouragement, and they don't see a way out, and they just don't see how they can praise Jesus? What words would you say to them?
Ray, I tell you, just trust him. Just believe him. That's the only way our faith is built. When things happen, I mean, your faith isn't built when everything is going fine.
Right.
It's those hard times that, and I've had people actually tell me when they heard that story that, you know what, we were getting ready to fold, throw in the towel, but if God can do that for you, our situation isn't that bad. I know he can bring us out,
Yeah.
And so a lot of times I believe God allows things to happen to give you a testimony that's going to help somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great segue, because in the opening comments in the show, I talked about there were 3 big areas of passion for you. There was dentistry, music, and then wellness.
Yes,
and on this kind of topic of going through tough times and praising the Lord and trusting him, you've had some health scares in your own family, in your own journey. Tell us a little bit about your daughter's fight with leukemia, lymphoma, and then maybe even your own health scare that you recently experienced. And how is God getting you through those things?
Yes. Our daughter is a picture of health. Never been sick. She's in her 30s now. When all this happened, she was in her 30s. She's an attorney, and she was engaged to a young doctor. And I mean, everything she was working in corporate America in the legal department, got elevated, bought a home down in Orlando, Florida, just everything.
Life was looking good.
Yeah, everything. This child just seemed like, she calls me one day when she was in college and says, what political affiliation are we? I said, why? She said, because they want to put me on the board of the college, of the university, and it's appointed by the governor. And I asked her a question. What political affiliation is the governor? That's what you are. All right.
That's a smart man right there.
But I mean, just that's the way her life goes. Just everything going good. And so one day,
I love that.
She starts getting short of breath, and these spotches start coming on her skin. And her fiance tells her if she doesn't go get checked out, he's gonna leave her, because she had a checkup 6 months before, and perfect bill of health. And so she goes on her lunch break, and while she's sitting there, after they ran tests on her, she's sitting in the office there in the waiting room, and she says the Lord speaks to her and tells her, it's going to get worse, but you already have the victory. And it got worse. They came out, told her what the deal was, immediately rushed her to the hospital. They said just a few more hours and she'd be out of here. They did immediate transfusion on her, and it just went down. She relocated, back to Indianapolis, where we, because she didn't have any really family down in Florida, where we could, help take care of her. And she was in the hospital there. And the kind of leukemia she had, the only way that she could be healed was, short of a direct miracle from God, would be a bone marrow transplant. And there was no match for her. In the registry, all over the world, no match for her. And so she was kind of like doomed to just keep on getting transfusions until she expired, But I remember I was sitting in the hospital with her, and the nurse came in happy and beaming, and she said, they found a match. And here's the deal, though. It wasn't from a person. The match was from an umbilical cord. They had just discovered that they could use the stem cells from an umbilical cord in order to do a bone marrow transplant.
No kidding.
Yeah, and so some woman had a baby and donated the umbilical cord, and it was a match for her.
Oh my goodness.
She told me, she said, Daddy, God allowed a baby to be born so I could live. Hallelujah. That'll preach, you know.
That will preach. Folks, we're going to pause right now and take an offering because that is amazing. So how's she doing now?
She is totally healed. It wasn't easy, though. Just getting the bone marrow transplant, because a lot of people die after that.
Yeah.
Because what you have to go through, they have to totally wipe out your immune system.
Right.
Chemotherapy, radiation therapy, it takes you to the point of death. And when she was at the lowest ebb, she told her fiance, she actually released him, said, you know, because they had told her that if she did live, she might just be a vegetable. And she told him that, you know, you're a young doctor, you got your whole life ahead of you, and I don't want to be a hindrance. And he looked at her and said, all I want is to spend the rest of my life with you. I like that boy, you know. They're happily married. She's totally healed.
Wow.
Yeah, and doing fine.
And that's thank you for sharing that. That's so powerful. And then you've had your own health scare just within the last, year and a half?
Yes. I was, and this is real interesting. You know, I wrote this book, The Ultimate Boost from Within, 31 Days to Health, Wealth, Wholeness, and Happiness. You know, I'm the epitome of health. And so I'm at church, and it's on Easter, actually Easter Sunday morning. And the children I didn't preach. The children did a Easter presentation, and all I was to do was just make the call to discipleship afterwards, just go up. And as I was making my way to the front, I started getting, you know, I was looking at my Bible and I couldn't read it. I'm like, what's going on? And next thing I know, I was out. And so they called 911. They tell me I was out for about 3 or 4 minutes. And during that time, I kind of had like an outer body, and it was kind of like looking at myself down there, and it was like, Lord, is this it? You know, is it time for me to? But then, you know, like they rushed me to the hospital, in an ambulance, and did all kind of tests, CT scans, X-rays, asked me all kind of questions. You ever been sick before? Do you have this? I don't have anything. Are you on medication? I don't have any medication. No. Has this ever happened before? No. You know, just, and so they couldn't find anything wrong. And they said, well, all right. And so I had a conversation with the Lord. I said, Lord, what was that all about? You know what? Is this going to happen again? I mean, suppose I'm driving down the street,
right,
and just boom, I'm out. You know, what is this all about? And the Lord, he said 2 words that changed my life. He said, trust me.
Okay.
Trust me. And now I've read that over and over in the Bible.
Yeah.
But when you go through something and God tells you, trust me, I mean, it put my faith at another level.
That is incredible.
You know what? I don't have to understand it.
And you've not had anything since?
No. Nope.
Wow. That was a message, just to learn to trust him at a new level.
Yeah.
That is incredible. Well, Dr. Scott, this has been amazingly fun for me, and I just know that those who are listening to our conversations, they've been encouraged as we've learned about your career, your faith, your stories like that, just, the healing of your daughter and your own journey. I have 2 questions now. We're kind of down near the end. It's been amazing. I'd like you to, and this is kind of like what I call my advice section, if you will, in the conversation. If you could go back and sit across the table from yourself when you were 20, 21, 22 years old, if you could convince the 21-year-old version of you to listen to you, what would you say? What advice would you give to the old 21-year-old version of you?
Boy, get saved now. I tell you, the only regret I had when the Lord saved me was I didn't do it so much earlier.
Yeah, okay.
Something about when you're young, you think you're going to live forever. You think that those people over there, they don't have any fun. They can't, and you don't realize that what you're calling fun is really death. It's like
that's amazing.
That I would try my best to convince him do it now.
Today is the day of salvation, right?
You're not missing out on anything. Take my word for it.
Oh, that's fantastic. So just real quickly again, folks, if you want to learn more about Dr. Scott, go to bishoplscott.com, bishoplscott.com, or you can learn about Ty Scott, his gospel recording label at Ty Scott, TYSCOT.com. Time for my last question, and those who regularly listen to the program know this is always my last question, and I call it my 423. It's based out of Proverbs 4:23, where Solomon writes, where he says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for from it flows all of life." So, Dr. Scott, if you have an opportunity this side of eternity where you could gather your family, your friends, your loved ones, and you could say, I want you to just remember this above all else. That's what I'd like you to do to end our conversation today. What would be the one piece of above all else advice that you would want to leave not only your family, friends, and loved ones with, but our audience here at Bottom Line Faith? Fill in the blank. Above all else.
Oh, above all else, make God the priority in your life. Just make him the number one priority. You know what? I believe if you do that, everything else will work out.
Okay.
If you just keep him. And that's easier said than done. Because stuff happens and stuff comes along and it kind of moves him out, you know. But if you can keep him above all else, keep him as the prime priority.
So when you get that call in business, somebody's going to not be able to pay your $300,000 to you. When you get that call from your daughter who's telling you she's got a terminal disease, when you have that experience where your own health scare is amazing and you have that out-of-body experience, what you're saying to us is above all else, just trust God.
Trust God.
Put him first.
That's it.
I can't think of any better advice.
Hallelujah.
All right, fantastic. Dr. Scott, thank you for being our guest here today.
Oh, man, thank you. I've had a good time.
It has been a good time. I just want to encourage you, if you've enjoyed the conversation as I have, check out those websites, Bishop L. Scott, that's 2 T's on the back of that, .com, and then Ty Scott, TYSCOT.com, to learn about Dr. Scott's record label, Ty Scott Incorporated. I'm holding a CD here, Bishop Leonard Scott, Jesus Love Legacy. I'm checking out his latest book, The Ultimate Boost from Within, 31 Days to Health, Wealth, Wholeness, and Happiness. I love this down here. It says, bless your bones.
Bless your bones.
Bless your bones. Like down in the South, they say, bless your heart. Up here, we're going to say, bless your bones. Folks, check out Dr. Scott. And that's what we're about here at Bottom Line Faith, is bringing you conversations like this. I pray you've been encouraged today as a Christ follower in business and in leadership to live out your faith, no matter where God's calling you in the marketplace. So until next time, I am your host here, Ray Hilbert at Bottom Line Faith. Check out the show notes from the interview with Dr. Scott. You're going to get a lot of insights there. Hey, recommend the program to your family and friends. That's how we get more traffic and more awareness. Whatever you can do. But most importantly, pray for us, because we are continuing to see God work mighty things through the program. So until next time, I am your host at Bottom Line Faith, Ray Hilbert, encouraging you to live out your faith every day in the marketplace. God bless, and we'll see you next time.
Bottom Line Faith is brought to you by Truth at Work. If you'd like to hear about new episodes or listen to past episodes, visit us online at bottomlinefaith.org. You can also subscribe to the show through Google Play and iTunes.